I wasn't open about it. I didn't think anyone would understand anything that I was going through and how I felt. I really thought, that I was alone. And granted, I had a therapist at the time, but it still wasn't enough. You know what I mean? I grew up not having my father, and a lot of people thought, oh, you're 5, 6 years old, and they didn't think that I would really remember my father, but I did. I do. I have little cousins now that are 5, 6 years old, and I mean, every time I see them, I'm like, man, I was, that age when I lost my father, and they clearly know their parents. But anyways, I lost my father at 6 years old, and I battled with depression, and I was actually mute for a while. I wouldn't talk. My mom put me into groups to, just help with my speech. I was a very shy kid. I stayed to myself. I was angry for a long time. And then like, even as an adult, I just started to realize that, this trauma was starting to affect my relationships with other people. I didn't trust people because I felt like, if my father took his own life and didn't want to be here, the people that come into my life now, they just gonna come and go. Love is, oh man. Whew. I think when it comes to, and like, even like loving people, I always keep my guards up. And it's something I'm still working on today. But being in a position now to talk about it and, meet other people that also share, the same experiences actually helped me. And I'm glad I'm at a point now where I'm vocal about it, and that there's other people that I can talk to, when there are those times where I need somebody to vent to, or, it took a lot of growth, but I'm grateful. I'm happy where I am now. And I'm grateful for, all the decisions that I made, because I learned a lot along this way, man. And it all started from just a young boy losing his father to suicide. So it's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
I think you can't end your introduction without talking about Man of the House.
Okay, yeah. So, man.
As I am.
I got to a point really where I knew I could no longer hold this pain in, and I had just started acting, and I just started writing everything down, and then being on set and being inspired by the actors, and even some of the stories you kind of hear on set inspired me to write my own film. It's called Man of the House. It's based on my father's suicide, and it's actually available now on UMC, the Urban Movie Channel. So if anyone is interested in seeing it, it's on the Urban Movie Channel. But anyways, I started writing this film. I started putting my pain on, all the on the paper, and I made Man of the House, man. And to be honest, everyone here in this group I met right after I released that film. Terrence, Steven, Nicole, and Nate. We met and we've done events together. It was really like I guess the best way to put it, like a gift and a curse, because it was so much pain that I was holding on to. But once I let it out through art, it just made me feel so much better about myself. And it just connected me with so many beautiful people out there that are also struggling and that just need to hear this story. And oh man, Man of the House has been my greatest accomplishment thus far. Like, I've worked with a ton of, mental health advocates, other therapists, organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Mental Health of America. I mean, the list goes on, and it's been recognized by like Revolt and Gentleman Jack, Real to Real. And I mean, now it's on UMC. The film is powerful. It's helped me get through so many tough times. And again, it's put me in contact with so many beautiful people out there that just, want to know that there's help out there and that, there's support out there. So I'm grateful for it. Yeah.
I feel like we often have the joke in Black culture, right, that like Black people ain't got time to be committing suicide. We got other stuff to worry about, those types of things. We ain't got time to do therapy. We ain't got time to be talking about mental health. Like, we marching, we try not to die. You know, we have all these other things. And I feel like that's a stigma in our culture. And something that we actually, you know, joke about it to an extent, that being depressed or having mental health issues is a luxury for white people that we can't afford. How did you run into any of that as a Black man walking through the experience, not only with your father's suicide, but then walking through your own depression and, you know, feelings attached to that? Did you find that it was hard for like people around you to really be able to identify or receive that because of that stigma?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, just the title alone, the title of the film is Man of the House. So I felt like I had to be the man of the house, which in most cases means I can't be sensitive, I can't be soft, I can't be acting like a little girl, I can't show any weak emotions at all. I had to be the man of the house. And that was something my father used to tell me before he left the house. And now here it is, a young kid, you know, really having to live that purpose, living that truth. I have to be the man of the house. So it was difficult. Aside from, you know, everything my mom and my father and what they instilled on me, just in society in general, yeah, I couldn't show any weak emotion. I had to bottle that up. And that's what I did throughout all these years. I held in all that pain. You know what I mean? So it was hard. On top of like, the BS that Black men have to go through. Showing emotion is rare. It's you don't see that at all. You know what I mean? And I think, which is why, you know, a lot of men have a hard time dealing, because they have to go throughout life being a man. They have to provide for their family. They have to do all of these things, and they can't show any emotion. And then when you do decide to show that emotion, most times people aren't listening to you. You know what I mean? They're going to tell you, yo, you know, everything is going to be all right. You'll get it together. You know what I mean? But like, not realizing how hard or how deep this pain really is. I know Stephen and even Devan and Terrence can even speak on that as well. Like,
I was going to piggyback off of that.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
No, hey guys. No, my name is Terrence Green. I lost my little brother to suicide about 5-6 years ago, almost. I kind of lose count now at that point. That's him back there, big head ass. Anyways, no, I don't even know where to start. Like he said, I deal with it the opposite way. I grew up always expressing my pain, always, because I'm the funny guy, I'm the clown, I'm always making everybody laugh and stuff like that. So I always thought it was okay to be sad. I always thought it was okay to cry and look down. Now I did get the responses from people like, well, you better man up, you better toughen up. And I used to be like, nah, fool, I'm hurt. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if my responses were always the opposite, but I always was curious about that. And I always battle with it with my friends, because I see them bottling up. I see them trying to act tough. I see them trying to hide their pain and stuff like that, until I actually experienced it. And I didn't realize I was doing it until I lost my little brother. The first like 2 years, I tried to act like everything was cool. I'm a comic, I'm acting, I'm doing, funny stuff left and right. So I'm like, I don't really know how to express how messed up in the head I am. You know what I mean? I don't really know how to express me trashing my house. I don't really know how to express this drinking problem. I really don't know how to express how I'm angry and I'm pushing people away and I'm looking for a way, but I'm stuck in these walls and I'm just trying to like figure it out. And then that turned into like 2 years, you know what I mean? But the full circle part about all this is, I got to see I got to do a series, and it got to play on a movie theater. And it was my first time to seeing myself on the big screen. And it was the same event that John was premiering his movie. I'm probably going to cry, I'm going to tell you, but I'll get through it. It's such a weird moment for me. And every time I even think of it, my chest gets big. So just work with me. I'll get through it. I'm fine. It's just, it means a lot. So I go to see myself on the screen for the first time, and John is premiering his movie, and my brother's name is John, and the character's name is John. It's about suicide. The kid looks like my brother. Like the first 30 seconds, I fell apart. When I tell you, I was just a mess, and that's when I think I realized I had like so much bottled up, you know, and I couldn't really like let it out, you know. And I was like, that movie just messed me up. And I'm a Steelers fan like him. Even looking at him now, I tell him it messes me up. He looks just like him. It fucks with my head. But I saw for the first time somebody use a pain that I have and create like I'm trying to create. So I was like, I gotta talk to this dude. Like, I gotta go. So when it was over, I went, ran up on him. I was like, hey man, this is about to be a lot, but you look like my brother and he's like you. And this movie's like my life. And I just start pouring out all this stuff to him. And he just like, let me, he just let me do it. And I felt like, whoo, like, damn, that was dope. And that's when I met B. And you know, she came up to me and told me that she had something where, you know, you could, you know, voice and speak and let stuff out and stuff like that. And I was a little hesitant at first, but I was so inspired from that film that I saw that like it made me want to try it. I was like, let me at least try it. Let me see what happens. And I went and I did a video that was like the first time in like, I think 3 years that I ever really spoke about it publicly. And it was just me and the camera. And that video took such a load off of me that was like, it changed my life, which helped me change even more people's life. Cause that's my intentions, you know, to inspire people and show, you know, how you can elevate through your pain. And that right there just catapulted me, you know what I mean? And I still battle with it, you know, but just being able to do that just opened so many doors and gave me confidence to know that I'm not alone. There are people out there that can relate. I've attracted so many people that just lean on me and I lean on them. And it's just, it gives me a sense of strength and confidence to keep going and open up to people. And, you know what I mean? It helps me cope, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, people look up to me. I have a big influence on making people laugh, but at the same time, these people look at us when we get to a certain point, they look at us like we're no longer human, like we're special, like we're superheroes. And, you know, you got to remind them you got sad days, you have tough days, you got to push through, you got to, you know what I'm saying? You got to lift yourself up. It's hard to get up every day. It's hard to smile. It's hard to do your purpose when you're dealing with your real life. So I use stuff like this and I use people like you guys to remind me that like I'm strong enough, I'm able, I have a support team and I have people out there that literally can feel my pain while I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor and stuff like that, you know?
Definitely. You know, it's that story still kind of trips me out, man.
I had to cut it short. I was about to go down. I just had to go down.
Because I've met so many people, like after all of my screenings, you know, even doing like the film festivals and, you know, some of the events with the mental health organizations. But that story alone is just so powerful, man, how, you know, here we are, two people from two different sides of the world who come together through film and you know what I mean, make something like that happen. It's just crazy, man. Every like event that I do, I always share that story with like everyone, bro.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Yeah. Steven, I think we had a like interesting kind of meet too as well, because I feel like you reached out to me on DM, or do you remember how that
was? I just remember it was you was talking about mental health. And it's just been something I've been real passionate about and an advocate for ever since, you know, I came out of my situation and my depression because I was unaware of it. Like I was depressed for 22 years and had no idea. And just to talk a little bit about what Natasha asked, like as far as like bottling it up or like trying to keep it hidden, you know, I constantly analyze my past to this day. The decisions I've made in certain situations and what triggered, you know, certain outcomes. And as I look back, like, you know, I realized that I was never afraid to cry, but it came at a cost. It came with rage. It came with destruction. It came with like tearing something up, hurting somebody, some sort of revenge. And, you know, it wasn't until I was 27 that like everything kind of came full circle and I realized why I was doing certain things that I was doing. And a lot of it had a lot to do with my past. You know, I was abused as a child from 5 to 10 years old. I was tied to dog cages and forced to sleep outside when I was like 6, 7 years old. And then when I was 10, my family was homeless, living in a car, and my sister, 14-year-old, she's pregnant. And I mean, it was just all these different factors that were just weighing on a kid, and I wasn't aware of really how it was affecting me. And then here I am, next thing you know, I'm 19 years old, I'm selling drugs, I'm, you know, doing all types of negative things. I've become a strong product of my environment. And, you know, but somewhere in there, you know, I felt like I had some type of purpose, and that's what kind of kept me alive, I should say. Because there were a lot of times where I decided not to go certain places, and certain things happened. And I had a good friend of mine get murdered execution style, and that really kind of triggered a lot of things for me. And just the world started crashing for me personally. So when I saw you talking about mental health, John, like I was on it, because like especially in the artist world, because artists hold so much power. We hold a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for. Just like my man Terrence just said, like people look up to us and they think like, oh my God, like that's God. Like, and it's like, nah, we're regular human beings. And that was actually the moment I chose to pursue acting on a higher level. As a profession, as a career, saying, you know, because that's actually where I found my peace, in acting. In the midst of being a drug dealer, I was still going doing church plays. I'm showing up for rehearsals. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was doing shows that I was getting paid for, didn't even know I was getting paid for it. Like just wanted to do the show. And because nobody really in my environment was saying, yo, nah, like if this is something you love, you should pursue it. Everything was all get money. You young black man, you need to be getting money, bro. Where your money at, son? So it was like it was just like this external pressure, you know, even just in my environment. And then again, being homeless, you know, going through poverty, all these different things. I got arrested in 6th grade for stealing lunch. You know what I mean? And, you know, I went to jail, bro. So it's like, here I am, I'm poor, but now I can't, I'm trying to steal. I tried to steal. It was like a little honey bun. It wasn't even like a whole meal, son. And you know, again, it like affects you. And then here it was, next thing you know, I was 27 and I was getting ready to blow my head off. And a good friend of mine called me, man. And I posted on Facebook. And I said, it's been a good run, but it's over now, adios. And a friend of mine actually thought I was saying something. He thought I was like talking trash about him. And he called me and we got to arguing. And in the midst of our argument, I was like, nah, bro, I don't even want this to be our last conversation, bro. I'm finna kill myself. And he was like, what? And in that moment, man, it kind of broke me to the point where I was just like, as soon as I finished writing this letter to my mom, like I'm about to shoot myself in the head, bro. Like there's nothing, like I've done everything. Like I stopped selling drugs, I started to go legit, and like my whole world started like kind of crashing on me. Here it was, I'm still focused on money. And I remember that night, man, my friend, he talked me down. He was like, yo, like there's nothing you can do about it, yo, he's like, give it to God, bro. He's like, just give it to God. He's like, but if you kill yourself, you don't have another opportunity. He's like, right now you're still undefeated. As long as you're alive, you're undefeated. And man, I took those words, and man, I remember I woke up the next morning, and if it didn't have nothing to do with acting, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to deal. I was like, I'm gonna focus on this and see where this goes, because everything else I've invested my energy into has led me down into a negative path. And yeah, acting pulled me out of that, man. And it's been the happiest I've ever been. Like, you know, 9 years now, you know, I had to go 27 years to find the best 9 years of my life. So a lot of times I talk to people, I'm like, yeah, I'm really only 9 years old, because, you know, it's just a whole different mindset to see why you're making the decisions you're making, you know. And I'll tell you another quick factor that I knew affected me. And it's funny because me and a friend was just talking about the other day. When I was 10, my cousin was murdered accidentally by his cousin. And they were playing with a gun. And that's how he accidentally shot his other cousin. So when I was about 22, a friend of mine was in my house playing with a gun. And I was remembering my cousin's scenario, and I was like, yo, stop playing with that gun, stop playing with that gun. And he kept like kind of testing the waters, like playing with the gun. And I ended up choking my friend till I almost killed him. And, you know, when our friends broke it up, they was like, bro, like, where was you at? Like, what was you doing? It was like, I really didn't know what I was doing. It was almost like I was trying to avenge my cousin's death. And, you know, this is what I be like, and this is why I'm a huge advocate of mental health, because like your brain can go a lot of different ways if it's triggered by different things.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen in so many different ways. I've had relationships with girls I had to say, oh, nah, baby, you got to talk to somebody. We can't be in a relationship. You know what I mean? Because I can see it now clearer than ever than before, where I've been like, oh yeah, let's just date. You cute. You know what I mean? So mental health is a huge thing for me. And it's one of the main reasons I pursue the career as an actor on such a high level, because, you know, I want that power of influence in order to be a greater advocate, you know, especially for our youth. A lot of them are raising themselves right now. And we see what's happening right now. It's kind of crazy, man. We don't know what the future holds, but we can hold ourselves accountable with what we're thinking and how we're moving forward, how we're educating ourselves.
Definitely. Yeah, now, I want to kind of go back to what the question, you know, that Natasha asked. And I don't know, Devan, maybe you could kind of, you know, introduce yourself and share your side, your story. And also go back to that question that Natasha had.
So, Natasha, do you mind recapping that question?
I was about to say the same thing. I was like, what's she asking again?
Yeah, I was asking, you know, in the Black community, we often treat mental health issues as something we kind of joke about and say that's a luxury for white people that Black people can't afford. And so we really don't address it because we kind of just consider it to be a non-issue. Like we got too much other stuff going on to really address mental health. And so my question was, have you experienced that as a Black man from the Black community? Like, you know, oh, you know, you sad, you depressed, like, you know, we don't commit suicide. That's what white people do, you know, and that's sort of a reaction when it comes to mental health and depression and suicide, just in the Black community and what that's like from a Black man's perspective.
Well, I have experienced that, but I was, you know, coming up for me, I was able to express myself through athletics. And specifically, a lot of the aggression and the emotions that I felt, I was always able to put them onto the football field. However, those emotions I found when I was older were limited in their range. So I dealt with depression after transitioning from playing sports to getting into the entertainment world and pursuing my career as an artist. And I didn't discover this depression until the acting conservatory that me and Steven were a part of. And I was able to uncover that through several of the exercises that we're doing. And I realized that when I was in college, my sophomore year, I contemplated suicide. I didn't attempt it, but I contemplated it. And it was one night where I was playing Call of Duty. And I had my pistol, because I used to carry my pistol everywhere in school for some odd reason. And I had my pistol on my dresser, and I remember going to it and unloading the bullets and leaving one bullet in the chamber, and looking down the barrel of that bullet or the barrel of that gun and thinking about what if I ended my life. But when I got into the conservatory, I traced that thought back to expression, to how we were able to express growing up, to in the environments that I was a part of. And I realized that it's not that we don't see the importance of mental health. I discovered in my community, we didn't give ourselves healthy outlets to consistently express and analyze our emotions. Like we all deal with things mentally, and yeah, we might have these breaks that we come to, but it's allowing ourselves to honestly to acknowledge what we feel from these different scenarios that we encounter. And what I realized is that we were emotionally emotional midgets, if I should use that word. Maybe it's not a good term to use, but in our range of expression, like we all, for instance, you ask somebody the question, where I'm from, how you doing? They'd be like, I'm good. And good is a default phrase. And we're not taught to say, you know what, I'm not good. And because I'm not good, this is exactly how I'm feeling. We don't have the words to express, or we don't create spaces to utilize those words. So I didn't see it, to answer your question, I guess, I didn't see it being shunned, like mental health is not a thing. I think we all knew it was a thing, but we struggled to actually communicate what it was that we were experiencing and feeling from the experiences that we were all having. So now I try to take the time every day to give myself the minute, 2 minutes, whatever, to really check in with myself and say, you know, what is it that I'm feeling? How is it that I'm processing this? Because I know several Black men, if we just talk about Black murders and things of that nature, I know a lot of Black men who have lost their lives or in prison simply because their feelings were hurt. And they didn't know how to say, my feelings are hurt. And this is exactly what I'm expressing. So I think it's critical that we start creating spaces and allowing for us to actually analyze and express our emotions through daily practice. You know, like the mental health and emotional health go hand in hand. And, you know, I think we all have trauma around the experiences that we have had, but moving forward beyond just delving into the trauma, I think we have to put together the strategies to help us not just cope, but further develop and thrive when it comes to emotional and mental health.
You know what, too? Like, to add on to that, like, I remember there was a point in my life where when I finally shared my film and my story, as helpful as it was, and it helped me kind of get through things, there was a time where I didn't even think that, you know, no one else was going through what I was going through. I really felt like I was alone. And it wasn't until I released Man of the House where it just made me more aware of like the services that are out there, how simple it really is just to go ahead and Google something in your area. I didn't really think, you know what I mean, mental health was a thing, suicide was a thing. I felt like it really only happened to me. So I didn't talk about it at all. And to be honest, you didn't really see it in the media anyway. And you know what I mean? So, was you about to say something, Terrence?
Oh, damn, you saw that?
Nah, I think
you made me realize something. I'll wait until you're done. Go ahead.
Got you. Yeah. Now it was really difficult for me because I really felt like I couldn't talk about it. My family didn't want to talk about it. It was something, and I really just felt like I had to be the man of the house.
Well, let me ask you this then, John. Mm-hmm. What when we say the man? What is the man? What is the image? What is the man supposed to be? Is he supposed to be void of emotion?
During that time, yes. That was the definition. During that time, it was like, you can't show any emotion. You have to be strong. You can't be weak. You can't act like a little girl. You can't do any of that.
That's because that's what you were taught. That's because that's what you were taught.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times when I see a lot of men in my practice, a lot of you guys are conditioned to believe to be so strong that I don't even think you recognize the delivery of things that come off, you know, with other people, especially within your family. So it's like, oh, I gotta be strong because you was taught that. Doesn't mean it's necessarily true.
And like even when there was times, because I mean, granted, I got emotional. My father killed himself, so there was times where I was emotional, but nobody saw it. I would be in the room underneath the blanket or in the corner somewhere crying, or in the room with the door locked so nobody could see it. You know, I really had to bottle up those feelings, and that's how I felt. And I mean, going to what Nicole was saying, really, that's how I was taught. You know.
And just to chime back in really quick, when you said you cried, right? You felt emotional. emotions are far more vast than us feeling sadness and grief and, you know, and excitement and anger, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I think there's room for us to explore those feelings and be honest with them and say, okay, what is it that I'm really feeling? Like, for instance, when I get upset a lot of the times, I realize I don't feel angry. I may feel like belittled or like, you know what I mean? And because I felt belittled or like whatever it was that I was saying isn't being validated or heard, I can choose anger.
Right.
But that's not what I'm initially feeling.
And this is important. Piggybacking off of that, and Nicole, and I'm a therapist myself, and I see a lot of men in my practice. 80% of my clients are males. Everyone experiences these range of emotions. They don't know what to call them. And so typically my first step is just literally discussing emotional intelligence. What is a feeling of belittled? What is a feeling of being frustrated? What is a feeling of feeling invalidated, right? Because, you know, I always say anger, we, you know, as therapists, we know is a secondary emotion. Under anger, right, there's an umbrella of other emotions that haven't been addressed. So when we look at the anger of the rioters and the protesters, we're looking at a slew of other emotions that haven't been addressed.
Right.
And men in general do not, and I shouldn't even say men, because I find it a lot with just Black people in general do not understand their range of emotions, how to talk about them, how to express them. And we have to look historically, feelings didn't matter. We come from a people where feelings couldn't matter because you had to survive. And if you had feelings, you're not surviving. And that carried itself on into our present day. And still that same thought process that in order to survive, I can't have feelings still exists. And that is the furthest thing from the truth.
You know, it's kind of wild listening to Nicole and Nathan say what they say. And even John, when you said how like you felt like nobody had like mental health problems except you. Like as a child, I had the complete opposite. And my mom's in here, she gonna hate me for this, but oh well, this is my truth. So I dealt with like a lot of domestic violence in my house as a kid. So my father used to beat on my mother a lot as a kid. So when you said you felt like nobody had problems but you, I would see my parents have all these problems and then get out the house or get out the car, get out the house and act like everything was fine. And I'm like, hold up, something ain't right. And I noticed that pain in other people. So I was I guess born with this annoying gift to want to see what was the feeling outside of the anger. Like you said, like, I'm like, okay, my dad is angry, but what is he angry about? You know what I mean? Like I always went beyond that as a kid and I would ask these things as a kid. I'm like, why are you so mad? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I'm trying to discipline you. I'm trying to discipline. I'm like, but I'm looking at my mom, you know, whereas a lot of people see the abuse and they, like you said, they're conditioned to react that way and it trickles on. For me, I saw it and it actually had the opposite effect. I'm like, why is this man making my mom so sad? Like, she's sad. Like, she not happy. She ain't gonna learn that way. You know what I mean? Like, she crying. Like, that's not making her, like, happy, you know? And I used to always question it, and I used to always question him, and he could never answer me, and it would annoy him. And his annoyance used to let me know that, like, I don't know, is he avoiding something? And mind you, I'm like 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean? I'm not no therapist. I don't think I'm a therapist. I'm just trying to figure out, why is my dad so damn angry? You know what I mean? Like, why is he going this far to try to teach my mom something? And she's an adult too, bro. Like, you don't hit us. You don't hit other dudes in the street. You hit her. That's it. Like, there's no lesson in it. Like, what are you doing outside of it? Okay, you're angry, but angry at what? You know what I mean? So as a kid, like I learned to notice that in other people and my friends, or when they would react a certain way to things that didn't make sense, like little things that shouldn't make them as angry, they would just blow up. And I'm like, yo, what's up? And they're like, nah, that shit shouldn't be here. I'm like, you ain't mad at that. Like, what are you really upset? You know? And like, when people would get annoyed, the people I care about, it would make me push that button more, because I knew I saw it in my dad. I saw it in my mom. I saw it in them. So I'm like, if I seen it at 7, as an adult, I know I'm right. So listening to Nicole and Nathan always say that, like, there's bigger problems outside of, you know, the initial like anger, and they're just lost for words to be able to express that. that's something I feel like God blessed me with that nerve to just want to even put that bug in their ear. Like, okay, you might not want to hear me say it, but if you hear that voice go, oh yeah, you mad, but mad at what? You're going to walk away and be like, what was I really mad at? If you care about yourself, if you care about your well-being, even the smallest bit. So it's dope to hear that from y'all, because I never knew where it like came from. I see people try to shield it and run from it, but it's nice to know that that's something that can help people, you know, learn more about themselves.
And that's something that also has to be taught too. You know, it's interesting when you ask people why they're mad. Like some people legitimately, they don't even have the wherewithal to understand why they're mad. And so when, you know, sometimes you confront somebody, yeah, what's this really about? It actually increases their level of anger, because sometimes they legitimately do. There's no recognition, no connection to what it's really about. So it's about whatever that surface thing is. And sometimes they can get like one layer below that surface, but can never get to the real crux of it. And so it constantly spins, it constantly revolves. So
I think going just off the point that we're making about the inability to express ourselves with words, I think in the Black community, like you were saying, Nate, it's like we have to look at the history of where all this has come from. You know, we were brought over here in a system wherein our voice did not matter. And we forget that we've actually been taught and conditioned to believe that our voice doesn't matter. Don't speak up. Don't talk to police. Don't talk to white people a certain way. You know, hide your emotions, or the only emotion we do show is anger, right? Because that's the one we most identify with, perhaps. And so I think, I'm Natasha, by the way, for people who are tuning in. But I think for myself, really what I notice in my following and the people who reach out to me, one of the number one questions I always get, or one of the number one comments I get is, wow, I just really love your vulnerability and your ability to be vulnerable. And that, and even with my faith, I'm very, very expressive, very open. I love Jesus, and this is why, you know, and I'm always, that's my anchor. And even in that, I get so many comments about, wow, the fact that you're not ashamed to express your faith, or you're vulnerable about your depression, your anxiety, your eating disorder, you know, all these things. And so for a while, I really chewed on that. I'm like, what is this thing that really, this star power with vulnerability, that people see it and they know that it is like this key, you know, that can unlock so much in them, but they feel this disconnect, like, I don't know how to attain that for myself. You know, why I wish I could be that vulnerable. I wish I could just, you know, tell people I have an eating disorder and this is, you know, this is what's going on. And yeah, I feel like in this climate that we're in right now, to your point, Nate, I think there's all of this emotion that we're not on both sides, and, you know, that we're not knowing how to articulate. And it really comes down to, I think in so many ways, our unfamiliarity with being vulnerable, and what opening up to that vulnerability really looks like. Because if you think about, we make fun of like, oh, they wear their heart on their sleeve. Like, don't do that. That's how you're gonna get a broken heart. Don't fall in love, you know? And so we do all these things to build these defense mechanisms. And I think that in this climate, you know, it actually is kind of a beautiful place to be, because our emotions are so high and everybody's so raw, that it's actually kind of a perfect time to begin identifying and dismantling and practicing, what does this vulnerability thing actually look like? Because we all have that capacity and that capability. And like, this is a perfect example of it, right? And to see people of color in a conversation like this, at least in my experience, is very rare. And it opens our community up to having these discussions that haven't traditionally been had in our households. You know, for me, it's like, pray everything away. Like, that's the cure for everything. Put the oil on it, do it at the altar. Jesus gonna squeak you up right clean, you know? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm on my page talking about how I love Jesus, but I also am still struggling with depression and an eating disorder. So like and so to bring that, I think, into our communities and be able to discuss, like, it's not just one fix, but really the overall, we just have to begin to put words behind these things. And I think in a community, again, where we've been conditioned not to speak or to curtail our words, so that they don't come off a certain way, so that we aren't as vulnerable because we don't have the luxury of being vulnerable because, we slaves and we just trying to survive. And so I think, going back to tracing really that this is something systemic that we've inherited, but we now live in this time and, we have the emotional intelligence to really unpack it so that in this generation, this conversation doesn't have to be taboo anymore. Like, these can be dinner table conversations. How was your day really? And Jimmy beat you up today and said X, Y, Z, how did that make you feel? And how did the teacher's reaction make you feel? You know what I'm saying?
I think Nathaniel kind of hit that on the head about emotional intelligence. These are things that have to be taught because we have not been taught these things within our community. You hit a word that is very dear to me in my practice because I do a lot of couples therapy. And I always say that, you, in order to truly love, you have to be able to be vulnerable with each other. The other thing behind that, what I truly believe in is that we have to learn how to be honest. It's like, what is your truth? And when you look at vulnerability and then truth, they go hand in hand, because a lot of us don't walk in truth because we're scared of what may come out of it. So there's either a fear, there's an anger, or there's a doubt, right? I call it the FAD syndrome. So those are the things that normally keep you from walking in your truth and being able to be your true self. And so I try to teach people in life, it's always about purpose, but you can't get there unless you understand your truth. You have to know your issues. You have to know how and why emotionally that you are, dealing with things this way. And so if you can't be honest with yourself, then you can't be honest with nobody else. And it starts with you. And those of us in the Black community, we have a problem systemically because of identity. We have an identity crisis. Most of us don't know who we are. So when you start looking at mental health, and mental wellness is what I like to call it as well, in order to be well mentally, you have to be well holistically. And so when you talk about God and these things spiritually and everything that goes together, you also have to be well with the things that you put in your body. The mind, the body, and the spirit have to be in line with each other. So if you're doing things to poison your body, you're also poisoning your mind, because they all go systemically together. Certain foods go against you and will cause things like depression. And people don't realize, I know for me, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm Nicole Benton, licensed professional counselor. But a lot of people don't realize, like, when I was growing up in Gary, Indiana, I grew up in the hood. I tell everybody I'm a recovering hood girl. So I'm not your average therapist, because I do stuff, in the prisons. I'm out in the hood knows me, okay? So it's one of those things that I do. But I went into this field to help us as a people, because we have to understand that we need to do better in wellness mentally. And so in order to do that, we got to start telling the truth and stop sweeping stuff under the rug about Uncle Charlie and why it's so and so. You can't stay around Uncle Charlie. Don't leave your girls around him. But we won't talk about why. Or, he just a drunk of the family. We got to start telling the truth. True story. When I was working in a prison, now growing up, I don't know if y'all know what a whole bath is, right? Because I didn't know.
I do.
I do.
I was told as a young girl, go on in there, just take a whole bath because it's late. Now, mind you, that has stuck with me for years. Now, I'm working in a federal prison, and I'm talking to a detainee, and he's telling me about how he had to take a whole bath. I said, oh, you take a whole bath. He was like, a whole bath? He said, oh, Miss Benton, your family must have been pimps. And I said, well, why would you say that? He said, you don't know what a whole bath is? I had to go home and call my mom. Was like, Mama, y'all shouldn't tell little kids stuff like that. All these years, I had no idea what that was. We got to start telling the truth. That's where it starts. And then we can start seeking and finding help and things like that.
I want to piggyback off of what actually both of you guys are speaking about vulnerability and about telling the truth. So for those out there, my name's B. Trofort. I started No Longer Silent a couple years ago after losing my cousin to suicide 7 years ago. This month was actually her 7th year anniversary. And we didn't know that she struggled with depression until after her suicide. And then from there, it became uncomfortable to talk about that topic because, of course, I come from a Caribbean background. My dad's Haitian, my mom's from the Bahamas, and Caribbeans are like Black folks. We don't talk about that, like it doesn't exist. So for us to be able to have that conversation, it was very, very hard for like my generation, me and my cousins to actually speak about like, hey, this is how I've been feeling, because we never spoke about that because, there's something that it's uncomfortable. And like you said, it's so hard to be vulnerable. You have to confront yourself. There's not a lot of people that are able to look in the mirror and actually confront themselves with how they're feeling and what they're actually going through, And so I started No Longer Silent as a content creator to be able to express myself, but to give everyone else to be able to share their stories and to realize that they're not alone. And in it was so powerful and it was amazing because even I had Terrence, and Terrence can tell you, Terrence broke down. And to be able to see a Black man express everything that they're feeling in emotions and in words, we all realize like a lot of people were able to connect with it because we're hearing words and we're hearing stories that a lot of us could relate to, but no one's expressing it. No one's talking about it. No one's telling them, hey, this is what happened to me. This is how I've been feeling, And with the vulnerability thing, it's very, very, I realize it's very, very hard for us to really, really attack and really want to be able to look in the mirror and say, this is how I'm feeling and this is what I'm going through. And I think that's the biggest challenge with the Black community is we want to put on Instagram that we're living this good life, this happy life, where everything's good and everything's gravy. But behind closed doors, when no one's looking, how are you really feeling? People aren't really pushing that down. That's why I love Natasha. That's why I reached out to you, because her vulnerability was something that we met on a shoot a couple of months ago, and she's just she's a bright light everywhere. But to be able to see someone like her in her position doing Nike and campaign ads and stuff like that, and actually talking about and being vulnerable about everything that she's feeling about her faith, about mental health and everything like that. We need more people like that expressing that and showing that, hey, you guys are not alone. There are people out there that look like you that are living life and that we're all going through it, but we're all still getting through it,
Yeah, I didn't realize how bottled up I was until I did yours. Like, when I say I knew it was going to be my first time going public talking about it, but I've always, I shared stories. I'm like, yeah, I have my bad nights, stuff like that. But, the days leading up to it, I had watched other people's videos and I ain't gonna lie, I was like, oh shit, like this taps in, so I didn't know what to expect. I got there like an hour early and I just sat in the car and I was like, okay, I'm gonna say something like this. I'm gonna go down this lane. I'm gonna talk about this. I'm gonna make the people feel like this. I'm thinking of me doing like an ad, you know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking about my bulletin points. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make my little brother, I'm gonna shout him out. So I go up in the room and I'm like, all right, what's going on? So she walks me in and we go to, it's the vibes, candles, incense. It's a little vibe, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, so I'm thinking she just going to sit across from me, interview me, ask me how I'm feeling, you know what I'm saying? So I sit down, I get ready. And she's like, all right, I'm going to go. And then you talk. I said, huh? Like, what? And she was like, you do your thing. And I was just like, what am I say? Like, you got to ask me something. She's like, just talk. Share your story. What are you feeling? And that hit me because I literally make a living off talking. I make a living off expressing, making people laugh and stuff like that. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know how I felt. Like, I didn't know what to say. And I was like, oh, this is that area people don't walk in. This is that door that when they peep it open, they go, no, I'm good. Let me keep going down here. That's that feeling. So I'm like, I'm here now. I'm stuck. I got to say something, you know what I mean? Like, I can't give her no BS. And like she said, the moment I started talking, I just fell apart. But I was like, this is new to me. I need to know what this is like. So I just kept going. I'm going down this road. We here, baby. Let's go. And I kept going. And when I left, I remember getting in the car and I was like, damn, I feel good. Like, why I feel cooler, like why I feel like my temperature got cooler. Like, you know what I mean? Like nobody saw it. I didn't tell nobody what I did. Nobody seen it. I ain't even know. I was like, I ruined the shoot. I thought I did. I was like, she's not going to use this. This is dude. I'm just sitting here looking like a baby, whatever. But I was like, but I feel good. And then from that moment, it was like, I see why people run, and I try to encourage it. And that's why, you know, like you said about her, when I started showing that side of me more, people tap in. They're like, you're so vulnerable. You're so open. You're so this. And so I wish I could be. I wish I could be. And one thing I learned is, because we're in a place where we have like followers and fans and stuff like that, people see the reaction we get when we open up, and that's what they don't get. That's what I've learned. People post that they're sad or they're upset, and then they don't get that whole bunch of people on their thread showing them the love and stuff that we get. So it makes them feel like it's not as important or it's not as valuable. So I try personally to look for that and try to make them feel just as important, and also let them know that, you know, you might not get that response on your thread or your Facebook post, but come on over to my live, join my joint, DM me or something. I'll talk about your story on my platform. People going to hear you. You're going to know you're not alone. So I give people the opportunity, and that's what I try to do, just a little case by case. But I did know that's a really big problem. People put a lot of value on the social media response and stuff like that, so it scares them away. And I try to show them I've been expressing myself like that before I had people shouting me out or commenting on my threads and stuff like that, because I just wanted to be heard, and some people just want to be felt. So I try to show them that, you know, you can be heard even if it's only 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, and to your point, Terrence, I think that's really great that, you know, just pointing out, you know, for people who want to reach out in that way, to do something like direct message somebody or to directly contact somebody. Because what I do kind of find with a lot of people is that they'll post these "I'm sad, I'm depressed" kind of posts, and a lot of people look at it as, here this person goes looking for attention again, and it can look like very attention-seeking behavior, which is frowned upon, right? But just to go back to vulnerability and to keep it there, you know, part of what Natasha mentioned, us being silenced because we can't say anything to police or to white people. There is also we've also bought into that notion within our community, where we can't be vulnerable to our parents, right? As kids, I always remember, hey, what are you crying about? Why? I can't talk to you. You better not say nothing, right? And I've always, we have to change that dynamic. And I have 2 kids myself, and one of the biggest things, and my kids know it, you can say anything you want to say. It just has to be respectfully. You can say, Dad, I didn't like it when you did this. It just needs to be respectfully, because we have to be able to help them open up that level of vulnerability, because that's where it starts. As kids are to be seen and not heard. So how do we learn to be vulnerable? Right. And so now as adults, a vulnerability now has to be taught. Right. And teaching vulnerability is like trying to help a person who's afraid of dogs get used to dogs when they're 25, 30 years old. Do you know how difficult it is to get a person who is afraid of dogs at 30 to be comfortable with dogs? It's extremely terrible. Take that with vulnerability. At least dogs you can expose them to all the time until they get used to it. How do you expose somebody to vulnerability? Right. So anybody who's on there, part of that, if you're looking to be more vulnerable, you're going to have to change your relationship to what it means to be vulnerable. Because our relationship as it stands is, being vulnerable means that you're going to get hurt or somebody's going to know this and that and third about you. You have to change that relationship to vulnerability actually gives me power. Because once I know who I am, there's nothing, I can tell you everything about me. And regardless of what you say, I own my stuff. Definitely. And that is the biggest relationship you have to change. And also this generation, and including mine, we have to have the courage to reject what our family's belief systems are once we come into our own. We have to have the courage to say, Mom and Dad, I'm going to have to, right, respectfully disagree. I'm not going to disrespect you, but I don't agree and I'm not with it. And that's the other thing. We still have this mindset that we have to respect our mom and dad. And, you know, it's always a tiptoe. I see 30 and 40-year-old clients who are afraid to confront their parents. It's mind blowing to me, right? We have to be able to reject those ideas and say, hey, I'm an adult. This isn't right. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm not going to be afraid of your lack of accepting me for what I now understand is right. We have to have that courage to do that.
And you know what? Like, to speak on that, like, that was my issue as a child. I wasn't being vulnerable at all. I was bottling up everything. So now as an adult, I'm learning how to be vulnerable. Like, really, that's where I'm at now. And then I realized, like, there's layers to it. You know,
Yes.
You can be completely open and share everything, or you can start sharing little things at a time. And that's where I started. I started sharing little things at a time. Then I started meeting other people who shared some of the same experiences that I had, that started to gradually open up. And that's what I realized too. Meeting other people that have the same exact experience as you helps the conversation happen so much quicker and easier, because you get it. Them people, they get it and they'll understand. And then you can have an open and true and safe dialogue. But even now, I'm 32 years old. I'm still not as open as I want to be. But where I was as a child, and even like 4 or 5 years ago, like, I'm a completely different person. And it's helped because now that I've opened and I've shared with my story with everyone, my family members are now starting to be a little more vocal. Like, I have aunts and uncles who still don't even talk about my father's suicide. But seeing like the strength in me has opened up a conversation to it, to say, hey, you know, it's okay. We got each other. We love each other. We're going to support each other. It's okay to talk about these things. Granted, you know, everyone's healing process is different, and things take time, but it's possible, you know, as long as we stick together and you have that support group and you know that there's someone there that's going to just listen to you, you know, it'll help the dialogue. And I think I don't have any kids yet, but I know, you know, going forward, my kids won't have these issues that I had as a child. You know what I mean? And now that I'm open and I'm starting to educate friends and family, they're starting to learn new ways to teach their kids and their friends. It really starts with the dialogue. And as long as we're comfortable to start it and someone is there to listen, man, it can make so many changes in this world. So
definitely got to be willing to have the conversation, man, and the awareness. For me personally, being aware of what I was feeling was huge in my transition into becoming who I am, because, you know, and I will say, even Devan, in our acting troupe, there was something that was always asked almost at the end of class every day that really set me on track. And it was, what are you aware of? A simple question. What are you aware of? And it never was really, sometimes the teacher would ask for just one word answer, or you could say whatever you felt, but it really made me actually think about what I was aware of and how I was really feeling and what type of emotions I was kind of going through, whether in the scene or just being an audience member watching a scene. And I started like implementing that into my own personal life. And man, I about 4 years ago, I broke down. And I literally I was losing my mind in my bathroom. And it was because I had come to the realization that I had to be the one to break the generational curses in my family. And it almost I felt the weight of it. Like it was so heavy. Like I was like, yo, and I literally almost tried to throw it away. I was like, why not somebody else? Like, ain't nobody. And I really looked around and I was like, damn, it's me. And you're aware of it, and you gotta put this hat on. You gotta wear these shoes, and you gotta make this happen. And then, you know, like I said, I just birthed a son. It's like I look at him, and I'm just like, wow, you know, to be able to understand this and not allow him to pick up, you know, my bad habits or my, you know, just things that I picked up along the way that I didn't even want. You know what I mean? Because that happens a lot in our journey sometimes, especially when you're just kind of molded by your surroundings. And I feel like that affects so many people's mental health hugely, just by what they're allowing themselves to be around. Because I ask some of my adult friends now, you know, I'm just like, why are you there? Like, what are you doing there? And a lot of times it's just repetition, going through the motions. Like, oh, it's Tuesday, I'm supposed to be here. Like, you know, and it's just like, you know, I see so many people without goals, with no real point of interest, just kind of going through their day, going through the motions. And, you know, being aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, I think that is so huge in how you make your decisions and even just your whole thought process in making better decisions for yourself. And even saying, okay, well, I shouldn't eat this, or, you know, I should do this, or, you know, I didn't start drinking water until I was 30 years old. 30 years old. True story. And it all came from just my environment. Nobody in my environment was like, drink water, bro. You should be drinking water. It wasn't until I had a girlfriend that was like, yo, when do you drink water? You're going to die. And I had to think about it. I was like, damn, yeah, I should drink water. Majority of my body is water. You know, so it's like just basic things that I feel like a lot of, you know, just simple education is not getting, you know, distributed correctly, or people aren't even being aware enough to even think, you know, because like everybody's heard that just growing up, like, oh, your body's this percentage of water. But even in that, you know, I remember somebody saying, oh, there's water in everything. And that allowed me to keep that. I kept that going. Like, yeah, bro, let me get that Gatorade, bro. So, and I played sports all through college and was still like, nah, give me the Gatorade on the sideline. So again, education is key. I love what Nathaniel said about emotional education, because again, vulnerability is huge. You know, the more I started telling people about my suicide situation, the more people started DMing me and talking to me and conversating with me. I mean, I speak with people all over the world who I've never even met, simply because I talk about suicide. And I didn't start really talking about it until I lost a friend 2 years after my situation to suicide. And he jumped off a building, and it was just kind of like, oh man, we should be talking about this. So, you know, I'm glad we're here just having this conversation, man.
Hey, Steven, I really, I just got super happy that you talked about awareness so much. When I lost my little brother, like I said, for the first 2-3 years, I was bottled up. I was silent. And like I said, I'm a funny man online. So I had enough content in my bag to just constantly post stuff and then have everybody leave me alone while I'm at home getting towed up. You know what I mean? And when I finally started to address the problem, you know, I'm really open for people to like criticize me, and people were telling me what I was doing wrong and asking me why. And I kept saying, I don't know. And I don't know. I'm not sure why I'm doing it. I don't know why I'm mad. Like, I don't know why I don't care about life anymore. I don't know. Like, and that's very rare for me to not know why I'm doing things, because I always knew why I was doing things. So I'm like, I'm unaware. So at one point I had lost everything, like my money, my friends and everything. I was just pretty much about to just call mom, like, I'm done. I need to come home. Like, I lost it all. And I went to church, and I had never really was big in the church. My father abused the church. He used to act like he'd go to church and came back a good man, and he would just lie to my mom again. So I really had a thing against the church. But then I learned I didn't have a problem with the church. I had a problem with what he used the church for. It had nothing to do with the church. It was him. So when I went to church, I opened up, and the only two things I prayed for was awareness and quicker reactions. I was just not responding to things quick enough. I lingered on to things. I pushed it back and stuff like that. So the awareness thing was like, my friends made me realize for so long I was ignoring things, and I was just doing things without knowing, you know, so I wasn't aware. I was just doing it. You know what I mean? So when I prayed on it, and I started getting more knowledge about awareness and just reacting to something once you're aware of it, because if I'm aware of it and then I don't react, now I got another problem. Now I got character flaws I need to work on. This is other stuff. That's another problem. You know what I mean? But now I got the awareness thing. So now I should be able to get rid of this problem, because I'm really fighting, because I'm aware now. So learning that, like, changed so much. So it's dope to see somebody on your end, because I'm dealing with the reaction of suicide. So listening to you, you know, on your end is showing me like it's really dope. So thank you for saying that a lot. I appreciate it.
I think that one thing too, Terrence, from what you said about awareness, is that it's an everyday thing, because life is always evolving. And, you know, we go through things and we tend to be like, oh, okay, I learned from that. I'm good now. No, you ain't good. You know, and I tell everybody, you know, every day is, you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? It's a constant thing, because every time you get rid of one thing, something else pops back up. And then when you're vulnerable again, it comes back up again. And so I think people should be aware of yourselves in all times with, you know, Absolutely. Every person that you meet. You know, one of the things, you know, I want to say I started really changing my life about 20 years ago, right after I got out the military. And one of the things I asked God was to help me be aware of my surroundings, the people that I was around. And it was weird because every time I would meet someone, I would always say, okay, why is this person in my life? Because we know we have reasons, seasons, and we have lifetimes. And in that, you have to really be mindful. And this is where your truth comes to play, and where having boundaries is very important. Knowing what your boundaries are. What are the things that you are going to deal with and what you're not going to deal with? Because most of us end up in situations because we deal with things that don't settle right in our hearts, but yet we still do it. And then we end up in places and we're trying to figure out, well, Lord, how did I get here? Because we wasn't aware of what we was doing at that time because of something that we wanted. So you have to check your motives. Why am I doing what I'm doing? So awareness is real key. Also to that all the way holistic wellness that, you know, I was talking about earlier. So that's a really great point. Even why you drink, why you smoke. You know, I ask people in addiction settings, why do you drink? And half of them couldn't tell me. Oh, you know, and some would say, well, I grew up drinking. I started when I was 8 or 9, or, you know, we started off just celebrating. When I was in the military drinking, you know, it was work hard, you play hard. I didn't realize till much later, like, you know, I need to slow this down. So awareness is real key to, you know, just your everyday walk in life.
I think that's so key. And I think, again, one of the things that I get asked the most is, how did you get where you are? Like, where do I start? How do I learn how to be vulnerable? How do I learn how to be aware? How do I learn how to meditate? Like, because we don't know, right? That's the answer we keep getting. I don't know. And I think, for me, three things really solidified my practice and my foundation. And one was my anchor being in something greater than myself, which is God, right? Because whatever your anchor is in, that's whether or not you're going to be rocked. And so if your anchor is even in your artistry and in your career, look at where we are now. Ain't no Hollywood happening right now. Like, that anchor is gone. You know, bank account, that anchor is gone. You know, whatever you're anchored in, if it's not solid, it's going to rock you. And so one was really getting anchored in, like, what do I really believe? Like, do I believe in God because I grew up going to church, or do I believe in God because I know him for myself? And that allows me to really solidify my faith, right? And then, the other thing was, my brother was murdered when I was in college due to a racial violence issue. He was dating a Hispanic girl. He was Black. They were in a gang. They didn't like it, so they shot him. And I'll never forget when the dean of counseling said, you know, why don't you come in? I was a star athlete. I was like, I'm good. I got God in my athletics. I'm getting straight A's. I'm great. And so I thought, because I was excelling, you know, that I was doing fine. And then one day I just found myself in his office months later, and he's like, so what brings you in? I was like, honestly, I'm good. Like, I'm thriving. I don't really know, you know? And he broke down this analogy to me that struck me so deeply, and you guys may have heard it because, you know, you're in the field, but you know, he said the way we deal with things is usually one of 3 ways. Things happen and we just sweep it under the rug, right? We just sweep it under the rug. And he says the problem with that is, the more stuff you sweep under the rug, the pile's going to get bigger. And every time you walk across the room, you're going to keep tripping over it. Keep tripping over this pile. Some people, they put it in the closet. They just throw it in the closet, skeletons in the closet. Problem with that is, eventually you're going to have to keep the closet door closed, which means you can never walk away. Because the second you try to step away from the closet, all your skeletons falling out. And then he said, in the third way, which is really the way that a lot of really outgoing people handle it, is they're backpackers. They're hikers. You take it, you put it in your backpack, throw it on your shoulders, I'm strong, and you keep going. And you actually tell yourself, this weight is making me stronger. Because the heavier my backpack is, you know, I'm getting cut, I'm getting strong, I got abs, you know, everything that don't kill me make me stronger. But eventually, you're going to have to sit down and unpack what's in the bag. Otherwise, you're going to fall over. And you're not going to be able to take another step. And I realized I'm a backpacker. And so it's like I'm hiding even in my art. Like one of the most successful models in the industry. I'm now, you know, all these things. And I'm like, look at me, I'm thriving, but I'm exhausted because I have never sat down to unpack. My strength actually became that which was making me so weak and crippling me. And I was hiding behind that strength. I was hiding behind my success and my talent. And that's the industry, right? We have so much suicide, so much alcoholism. It's rampant in our industry. And we think that because we're successful and because we're expressing ourselves through this art, that's healing. But we can actually get lost in it and hide behind it. And so when he really highlighted that for me, and I was like, okay, counselor, maybe you have a point. And so then I actually entertained therapy for the first time, which in my Black household, where we had Jesus, it's like, Jesus is the wonderful counselor, you don't need therapy, right? So there was that stigma, right? The stigma that Black people, we don't do therapy. And even not even just Black people, I think from the older generation, therapy is really just kind of frowned upon. I know both my parents, they're still like, eh. But so, yeah, it was therapy. And then the other thing that I tell people too so much is just writing. Like journaling every single day teaches you how to use your words. And for me, it literally started with like, in the morning, I would start to, my whole meditation practice started from 10 minutes to now it's 2 hours. And I guard that 2 hours with my life. If I have to be on set at 5 a.m., I'm up at 2. Like, because it is so essential to my mental health. If I don't get this time, I know my whole boat is rocked for the rest of the day. And that's an investment that's just as important as brushing my teeth. It's just as important as working out. It's just as important as the groceries I buy. And so I think learning how to restructure your life around this practice, and it started for me, you know, just 10 minutes a day. I would read a devotional and I would set my alarm clock to something soothing so I didn't wake up like, bah, 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 you know, somebody's banging down the door. So I woke up into sounds of peace. And then I would just sit in silence and learn how to get comfortable with the silence for like 10 minutes. Which was not easy, because what happens is when we sit in the silence, things come up, right? And then we're like, oh shit, I'm thinking about something. I don't know. I don't want to deal with that. I don't know how I feel about that. But then I found that when I write down the anxious things that come up first thing in the morning, then I've got them out of my body. And so I've addressed them in some capacity for the day. And now I can like move on with the day. And so I think that really taught me so much how to express myself, because then when you read back through your journals, even if you don't have the words to articulate how you're feeling or why in the moment when someone asks you, if you go back and start reading, you'll see the common thread, right? You'll begin to see the story take place and really shape itself, and even then introduce yourself to you, because the first person we have to learn how to get vulnerable with and introduce ourselves to is us. And we don't even know who we are behind this mask half the time, right? Until we've taken the time to sit down. And so, yeah, I think, again, the questions that I get asked about the tools, it's really just like, know your anchor, what is your faith, what is your anchor that's bigger than you? And then get therapy if you need it. I think we all do, to be honest with you. Your friends are cool, but you need a licensed therapist, in my opinion. That's just me. And yeah, just journal. Just journaling. I think that is just, it helps learn how to use your words.
You know, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask everyone, like, how do you guys deal with your stress and anxiety and just being overwhelmed with life? And, you know, what are ways that you guys kind of deal and cope with those things? You can start
especially during this time that we're facing. How is everybody tuning into that?
I've been losing my mind. I'm gonna be honest.
For real?
I'm just being straight honest, because it's like all of this hit right during, I have a very structured life, so, because I do a lot. And because I have a lot of ailments from the Army, normally around February, March, I start swimming to get myself into my workout phase. So of course in March, things started shutting down and I wasn't able to swim. So I'm like, oh, okay, that just threw me totally off. So then I was like, well, I guess I got to ease my way into some other things at home. Now, mind you, part of my practice is holistic. So I have yoga and fitness and boxing and karate as part of my partners that we help with a lot of my trauma clients. And so I'm calling all my partners like, yeah, can y'all help me do some stuff at home? I'm trying to figure out, but it's been rough. you know, because swimming is always very therapeutic. And then the second thing that I like to do was also taken away from me, which is music. I would go to concerts, sometimes even by myself, because I just love music. I love the arts. I grew up in the arts, you know, growing up in Inglewood, Rogers Park, back when I was coming up, they used to have a lot of free things. And so I was in acting and dance. I did a lot of stuff in theater. I learned a lot. I listened to you guys because it was very therapeutic for me growing up in the neighborhood that I did. It was a getaway, you know, and that's part of the things I think I heard Natasha say, like, oh, we think we're good because we're expressing, but those things are still there. But it's still, the arts are very therapeutic. So I found myself now, I started drawing again. I had to go back to my childhood things, which was the drawing. I started back writing poetry. Anything to kind of release, you know, since I'm not able to really do the things that I like to do or that I used to do, I realized that has become very, it's been very good for me here recently, just to be able to go back to that again.
Okay. I know things are really complex right now. And you know, I've been having a good bit of emergency appointments over the last 48 hours, considering the climate. And, you know, I can tell you what I do. What I probably do is, for a lot of people, just extremely like, wow, how do you really do that? When things, first we have to be flexible people. Most people aren't flexible. We like what we like. We like our routine. We like our patterns. And when it gets disrupted, it disrupts our whole being. Right. And so I talk about things that we need to accept. We need to accept that things change. The only thing that's constant is change. And we have to be flexible to move with that change. If we choose to stay inflexible, we make things harder for ourselves. The other part is creativity. We have to figure out how to be creative and when we have limitations. And, you know, Nicole was speaking of, I guess, a lot of the COVID environment. A lot of people lack creativity. It's you know, are stuck in a box, and we have to be able to figure out how to do things outside of a box. And as we talk about the last 72 hours or the last week, which we have seen a lot of injustice, and then I think people of our community have different outlooks on what should be happening right now. Some are saying protest. Some are saying, oh, it's okay to burn down all this stuff. You know, and there are, you know, just this array of conclusions that people come up with to resolve this conflict. And no one is really talking about what reality is. Reality is racism and injustice have always existed. And, you know, I tell people part of it is accepting. And when I say accepting, not accept that this is it and this is how it's going to be, but accept that this has been part of our history for all this time. And this notion that it's going to change overnight, over 100 years, when we're talking about 400 years or something, is absolutely ludicrous. Change, especially behavioral change and any type of social change, is incremental, not abrupt. And we like abrupt change, because that's how we live our life. We live our life, hey, I take a picture, I don't have to wait, you know, 3 or 4 days to get the picture back. I can send it right now. We are a right now nation. And something like social change is not right now. Think about even women's issues. Women have been liberated for how long? And look, in 2016, how many people said they still couldn't see a woman as a president, including women? Social change is incremental and not abrupt. And I think there is a real need to consciously understand how social change works. And we want to see the abruptness. Now, what could be abrupt are possible laws that are put into place, i.e. a lot of people want to see, hey, at least these police officers get arrested. Why should they get a process of having to have an internal police investigation before charges are brought when we see something clearly directly in our face? That's something that could be abrupt. Like, hey, if we have this evidence, we might just need to do the charges like we do everybody else. And the investigation still goes on. But social change is incremental. So part of what I have done and try to help people do is accept and understand that concept. I understand the anger, and I'm not oblivious to it at all, right? In my own skin, having had several of my own experiences. But I also understand that social change is incremental, and that's what I have come to accept. How do you, manage how you might feel about everything that you see out there? Because everybody's sight is different for what they see. Some people are seeing this and they're feeling just very upset because of what's being destroyed. Some people fear that this is, this whole 2020 is the end of everything, right? And it goes back to identify what you can do and do it. Don't focus on what you can't do, because you get nowhere focusing on what you cannot do.
Hey, Nathan, I want to piggyback off something because I'm actually battling with that. So I was, how do I say it? It's like when I first, and Nicole, sorry, I'm trying to like iron out everything that y'all said. Cause in my quarantine time, I'm actually thriving. Like I'm living lavish right now. And when I say that is because my lifestyle is different. I'm out in these streets every day, all day. I move around like I got a hologram. People be like, how you here? Like I be out. So my alone time is coming home exhausted and passing out. You know what I mean? And even though I get that time alone when I'm driving in my car, I never really get this much time alone to work on myself. So in this time, I just did the complete opposite. Like I just was like, I don't never read books. I do audio books. So my life coach, OG, blessed me with like 30 books that I know are like classic stuff that I wouldn't even touch. You know what I mean? So I'm doing that. I took classes in Photoshop and Final Cut and stuff like that because I create my own content, but I also know that I edit my stuff without knowing the technical terms. I pretty much bootleg my process of editing and stuff like that. And it's because I don't know what these words mean. I just click and see what it do. And if it don't work, undo until I get it right. But I want to know the actual terms. So I signed up for classes online. I negotiate my own branding deals, but I don't know what I'm doing. I just be looking at what they got and assuming, I just think of a rate. But then I start taking the business classes at Harvard so I could like understand stuff like that. I started, I just want to learn the technical terms, the stuff that we lack and the stuff that, keeps us from being our best. You know what I mean? Now, with Nathan, when you said about just this stuff happening over time, I was battling with that because for like the last 4 years, every year something like this happens, and it's always like 5 or 6 names that stand out to us, and we always know about the hundreds of names that don't get that news. And my way of expressing myself is creating content and videos like that. So every year, I didn't realize it until like a few days ago, but every year I somehow do a tribute video to try to bring awareness to it. And it goes extremely viral. It hits all the news. And that's not my thing. That's not what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming to just express how I feel and how it reacts to me. But this year, I didn't feel like that. I felt tired. I felt like I don't feel like shouting out 6 people who died and nothing changing. Like, cause for me, I only have this much experience with the world that's been experiencing it for this long. And I'm realizing, I'm like, damn, I felt like this year after year after year. And we don't have no, like, I feel stuck because I'm like, how can I help change when I meet with my friends and we talk about it? Like you say, how can a cop not be like charged with something instantly if there's video? Like I question these things and I feel dumb as hell. Like I really do feel dumb as hell that I can ask something so simple with so much logic and no one can give me an answer. Like it really blows my mind. You know what I mean? Because I'd be like, am I asking something foreign? You know what I mean? And I'm asking my higher up. And they're like, bro, it's the people in the chairs. We got to change this and we got to change. I'm like, that's not helping me. You know what I mean? So listening to you say that is like, it really helps iron out a couple like anxiety problems I have. Because I started feeling real lost. I'm like, every year I'm feeling the same. And I feel like I'm not getting knowledge in how to get changed. And I feel like I'm starting to sound like I'm turning into my parents. I showing them videos and they responded like, that reminds me of me when I was younger. My grandparents saying the same thing. I'm like, all right, like, what happens from here?
Yeah.
You know?
I've been in the community for a long time doing things, and even I was 12 years old and a victim of police brutality by our famous and infamous LAPD. Got a scar on my head that reminds me of it every day, and that they were never brought to justice for doing something as stupid as they did to me as a child. And so as years have went on, you know, I'm one of those people, I deal with law enforcement. I work in the prisons. I do all of this stuff. I see so much every day that when these things happen and they are publicized, I become numb to it because I deal with it every day. And my question always is, but there are, like you said, hundreds and thousands of George Floyd. There's thousands of these people in our communities, in the prisons. And, you know, I'm constantly trying to find ways to educate people about civic engagement, how we can get involved. We typically only get involved with presidential elections. And we don't pay attention to our local elected officials. We don't pay attention to laws that are being passed. You know, we don't go to the meetings. And if you wanted to be really honest about anything when it comes to social injustice, it is in every system. It's in our education system. Yes. It's in everything. And I've been a part of this, you know, trying to help people for years, but it's like until we get a mass of people, the same people that are going out and protesting are the same people that need to form groups in their communities and go to these meetings and start holding these elected officials, you know, accountable. Because at the end of the day, it's not just the police, it's the judges, it's the district attorneys, yes. It's the people that are making the decisions that we have to go after and that we have to hold accountable. Otherwise, but see, here's the thing. We don't need any more single leaders. We need groups of doers. We need people that will actually get together in their various communities, but because we don't have communities anymore, that makes it hard too. But we have to get together and say, and learn about our laws and say, you know what, this ain't right. You guys are, you know, railroading people who are Black and brown. You guys are railroading the poor and the oppressed. But how come this person only got 2 years and this person got 20 years for the same, you know? And so when I look at stuff like this, yeah, it's a lot of us, the reason, like you said, Terrence, people are tired. People are tired across the world. When you see people in London and all these places, I've talked to these people before. These folks have the same issues we do. Racism, oppression, bigotry is not just exclusively about Black and white. You got to realize it's about power and economics. Right. And as much as they can keep those of us who don't have divided, then they keep it. And they do whatever they want to. So in these times, I try to encourage people to do their part. What does your heart tell you that you can do? You know, it may not be big, but what can you do?
That is so good because, you know, yesterday I'm here in LA in Hollywood and the march was taking place literally 2 miles by my house. Like it's on my run route. I could have run there. And I'm somebody, you know, I'm a political science major. I'm all in politics. I'm always marching. That's me. I wanted to be a judge before I became an actress, you know. But yesterday I found myself so kind of just overwhelmed, and I needed to stop and really take inventory and say, why am I feeling like I should be there? Am I feeling like I should be there because I feel like I am betraying my people by not showing up? Or, you know, is it because I actually feel like that's where I'm supposed to be and that's where my power and my voice is most beneficial? And when I really stopped and took inventory and really was like, okay, God, what are you saying? Where is my place in this? In this army, if you will? You know, we have so many roles. Somebody has to stay with the supplies. Somebody has to run the phones. Somebody has to be on the prayer line. And so I was like, okay, where am I most essential right now in a place that doesn't pour me out to the point of emptiness, but where I can pour out and be poured into and really, you know, give to the cause. And I struggled with that because my initial inclination was get down there and march and, you know, get blazed with tear gas. Like, otherwise you are not participating. And when I really took that time to really take inventory, like we've been discussing this whole time, really sit down with yourself and say, okay, what do I want? What do I need? I realized, you know, at this juncture, in this battle, God was like, you can sit this one out because really I need you on the prayer team today. And I just need you to really just go and intercede and text your brothers and sisters who are out there, you know, check on them, see how they're doing, be that voice, call people. And so yesterday, you know, I spent the day praying and calling people and checking on people and talking to people. And to, you know, to your point, Nicole, it's like we need to figure out where we fit in the community so that we can function as a body. And not just, we only got feet and no hands. We only got, you know, we only marching, but we're not lobbying. We're not running for office. We're not teaching our children to become police officers. We need brown people to be police officers. You know, we need to rewrite policy. We need to be involved in our judicial system. You know, we need lawyers and judges and all these things. And so it's that is a piece of it, but really sitting back and saying, is there a bill in my head that I can actually sit down and write? You know, I'm so upset. How can I put this on paper? And what can I do? Maybe I'm the person who's going to write the next bill that's going to change how, you know, policing is done in my community. And so I think, you know, just back also to the point about how we're coping with this, it's really like what Nathaniel was saying, spending our energy in the place where we can actually be most effective and focusing on what am I good at and what can I do, instead of feeling incapacitated and powerless by what is not my job or what is not in my arsenal to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that tired feeling also, just to piggyback, and I think that's really great, Natasha, but again, this is part of the acceptance, is to understand that these things are going to continue to happen. It's been happening all this time. Why would it stop in that way? Why would it come to this abrupt stop? But it is about the incremental changes. And so I get that spirit of, I'm so sick and tired of this, but we have to get sick and tired of it for that day. And then the next day, bounce right back up. You know what I'm sick and tired of? I'm sick and tired of, you know, my child coming home with the same grades after talking to him constantly. That doesn't mean I stop. Right? You still make sure that you're sick and tired. You give yourself that day of rest, because we all need that kind of mental day of rest. Like, all right, and we bounce back up and we move. I love what Killer Mike said. What did he say? Plot, plan, mobilize. Like and that's important. It's also important to do it the right way. And I think, you know, we do need to get back into the community. We need to get those of us who are well aware need to get in those communities, talk to these organizations, talk to the churches, how to do it. How do we do it correctly? And oftentimes the biggest gaslight that we have in our community, sometimes I hear people, is there's no sense in voting. I'm like, do you understand that people in the 50s and 60s were marching and getting bit by dogs and hosed down just to have equal right to vote? That's it. Nothing else. They just wanted to be able to vote, because in voting, there is power. And I know there are some people that are going to disagree, and that's fine. But the takeover that people see, I don't think is realistic.
And I don't know if you can't see me or not. I might be frozen, but I think it's okay to feel like you don't have a part in this. I think we're telling each other that we got to be active, we got to do this, we got to do that. No, it's okay to literally just take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your spirit, take care of your family, and not be distracted and so reactionary to these things that constantly come up. Nathan, to your point, this has been happening. This is the fabric in the history of this country. And unfortunately, it's going to be here. So I'm more interested in us really learning how to take care of ourselves and putting together a plan for our individual lives and our collective community moving forward, and not being just responding to all these outside stimuli. It's like this happens, and it's going to happen again in 4 years. It's going to happen again next month.
Yep.
And then we're going to get excited, and we're going to do something. We're going to march, and then it's going to die out, and there'll be another new cycle. But it's like your daily life, your daily health is important. Natasha, you spoke about something very powerful, and I'm proud of the Black women, especially for what you all do. You all do such a wonderful job of empowering each other, empowering yourselves. I've watched a lot of the Black women create these support groups where you all come together and express yourself, write down things. You talked about journaling. Especially as Black men, we need to journal more. We need to incorporate meditation and prayer into our daily practice. That's one of the things that I've been working to get better at, is waking up at a certain time, praying, meditating, aligning myself and moving with intention, getting those thoughts clear, writing them down, and cutting off the distractions, like backing away from social media sometimes, backing away from the news cycles. Because if these things keep your minds consumed, or our minds consumed, all it leads to is inaction, because we become inundated and we're overpowered by all of this information. And it's like you get to the point where you feel powerless, you feel overwhelmed. And we're trying to address something within, Nathan, back to your point, we're trying to address something within a few months that's taken hundreds of years to get here. So we have to realize that this work we won't see the results of this work within our lifetime. But we can put our efforts towards a better outcome for our grandkids. But we have to remind ourselves that, like, our great grandparents fought for this luxury that we have now of even sitting on a Zoom call to have this discussion. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to keep it into perspective. And I think it's so critical for brothers to not feel like we have to take the world on and put it on our shoulders. That is not your responsibility. What your responsibility is to your mental health, to this protection and the safety of your family. Stephen, you have a 8-year-old son. Nathan, you're a father of 2. John, you and Terrence, we've yet to have kids. And as far as the women on here, they're depending on us to do the work that we have to do as men to heal, so that we can be those anchors or support for them as they're doing a wonderful job of healing and empowering themselves. And fellas, we have to do that. So during this time, I used to always get on the front line and like do marches and stuff like that, but I had to be real with myself. I was like, you know what? I'm not tired. I'm actually energetic, but I'm excited about creating the life that I want to see for my family. And that's where I'm going to put my attention and focus, because that is what's going to last after this news cycle ends. After next week, when something else becomes more important, that's what's going to happen. My family has to be here. They have to have that. So I have to put my energy and my attention towards them, and not to be long-winded, but, we're in an election year. So let's put our time towards educating ourselves on the political process, on the financial process, because Nicole, to your point, this is a battle about have and have nots. This has very little to do with George Floyd. George Floyd is one of many hashtags, unfortunately. But this is about a power structure that realizes within their lifetimes, they may very well have to face the reality that they will no longer be, or at least within 100 years, will no longer be the superpower. So this is a last-ditch effort for these mainly white men to impose their will on an uprising majority. It's not a minority, it's a majority. Because when we talk about inbreeding and all of that, they have to face the reality that two generations from now, their kids are going to look like us.
Come on.
You know what I mean? So they're going to look like us. So that they're dying out, and they know this. But they also know this because they're focused on 100 years from now, and they're not reacting to the carrots that are being dangled in front of them on a consistent basis. So we have to shift our mindsets to 100 years from now. Like Dr. King was thinking about 100 years from now. Malcolm X was thinking about 100 years from now. Marcus Garvey, 100 years from now. you know? So.
Fame starts at home, which is pretty much what you were saying. It starts at home. And if we don't pay attention to us, our families, like our immediate where we're at, you know, we can't go. Not me personally, I've never marched, and I probably never will because I don't do well with ignorant cops. That's just who I am.
You gotta know.
But I do my part. And like I said, everybody do their part, do whatever it is that is within your heart, even if it's, again, educating, you know, your kids and your family and your people, your circle around you. And so kudos. I enjoyed that. Go ahead.
Nicole, I like what you said. I had a moment where I wanted to transition. A lot of people don't know I had a dance career first for like 10 years. Okay. And then I wanted to transition into acting, and I wanted to learn how to act. And my process was I became a journalist. And for 2 years, I tried to make it a point to interview actors and to get their journey so I can kind of like quicken my process, if that makes sense. That was just my tactic, I guess. One of the opportunities I got blessed with was to sit down and interview Ice Cube and Cedric the Entertainer for Barbershop, like 2 or 3 or something like that. I had asked them a question. You only get 3 minutes to talk to these people at these junkets, but I would never ask them about the movie. I would always ask them, you know, something about life so I could apply it to me. So when I sat down with them, I told Ice Cube, I said, how come in every barbershop movie, you have an older guy trying to teach younger people how to live? Like the old guy with all the wisdom has all the answers, and at the end of the film, he's always right, and nobody listens. Every movie, and even in my life, always the old heads speaking the advice. Now, I was blessed with the gift to listen to them and know that they were right, but a lot of people don't. So I asked Ice Cube and said, I was like, did you ever think about giving a younger, cooler guy the role in a film so he could show the influence? Because me as a kid, I wanted to be like the high school kid, that street dude with the nice car and all the jewels on and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I wanted to be like him. He had more influence on me than the older guy. So I was like, how can we bridge the gap with our community as far as, you know, like having that impact of Ice Cube, that Cedric the Entertainer, when y'all speak, we listen, you know what I mean? But how can we bridge that? And he hit me in the face. Like, so he was like, you the bridge. He's like, not many people have that access to talk to us or get what you gain from us. So you use what you get from me and you take it back to your hood, and you have that voice. That voice is just as powerful as me. So you use that to bridge that. And that right there taught me that, like, you know, I don't have to wait until I'm Barack Obama status, you know, to try to change the people around me. You know, I do have a voice, and the people around me do have ears. And if they want to listen and apply it, they shall do so, and it'll show and it'll affect. And if those people can live in their truth and say, yeah, Terrence taught me that, and then people come to me, it's like, well, I learned this from Dr. Dre, you know what I mean? Ice Cube, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it showed me that. And I spent so many years trying to say, how can I be that voice? How can I be that voice? And I didn't even realize I was that voice the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just needed to be aware of it. So anybody in here, you guys just know, like, you can, even if you change one life, that life can change the lives of other people, and that stuff can just trickle on. And so many people come back full circle and explain it to me, like, you know, thanks to you years ago, you don't even know it. You sent that little tweet off about this. Yeah. And I was on the rail. I was on the 80th floor about to let go. And then I saw your tweet and it was like, nah, you know, and stuff like that just constantly tells me to trust my gut, you know, always speak my mind and speaking my truth, living my truth. And you never know the effect you'll have on people out there. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Like, I remember the one time I ever went on a march, I realized it wasn't for me. Now, granted, I had emotions, and I wanted to at least stand with the people and show this injustice. But at the same time, I realized marching wasn't for me. And there's other ways of communicating that message through social media, through conversation with your friends. And then I started to notice, even being on social media, that seeing these videos and seeing these images of our people on their neck, like, I don't want to see any of this stuff. And it was really starting to affect how I feel. So I had to find a balance between being supportive and you know, standing with the people But at the same time, you know, unfortunately, seeing these images and these pictures and just these videos, some of the videos you see, there was a video, because they had the curfew here in Atlanta, there was a video I saw this morning that kind of blew my mind. There was two people out after the curfew, and police literally stripped them out the car, broke the window, tasered the guy, pulled him out the car. It was just crazy. And I know for me, the way I deal with emotions and, you know, how I kind of go about my days, I knew that this wasn't something I should have watched or should have seen, because it could potentially, you know, mess up my day or just affect my day to an extent. So I know with like supporting, I know people just have to be mindful that these images are hurtful and they could affect your mental health. So find a balance with watching videos and looking at these pictures. You know, find what's good for you, because there are ways to be supportive outside of marching, but it will unfortunately have some effect on your mental health.
Yo, quick little plug. Thank you all, John. Thank you, John. Thank you, Brianka, for creating this. This is just as important. This is helpful. You know, you've impacted the lives of over 50 plus people on this Zoom call, more than that. So this in and of itself is value, and I'm just grateful. I just wanted to say that, verbalize that to you. Grateful for this opportunity. Thank you all, for real.
Yeah, I'm super happy. I'm hyped. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like I ain't gonna lie. I wasn't gonna say it, but I'm just gonna say it now. Like, I'm about to be leaning on y'all, bro, because y'all some geniuses to me. I'm looking at all y'all like, damn, I'm learning a lot from these people. Guys, I'm about to be in their DMs. Like, yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, man. This is probably like my best call in the past like 2 months. I've been getting doing a lot of interviews and stuff, and I ain't gonna lie, man. I really hate interviews, but like coming in like conversations like this, I really love jumping in conversations like this with people with the different ideas and perspectives, and also at the same time, it's crazy because we come from so many different angles, but it's all coming back to education at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Just bettering ourselves and understanding that it's okay to be you and say, okay, this is what's for me. That ain't for me. You know, because I think I'm more like Nicole. You know, I've actually been in a funk personally in these past couple weeks between COVID-19 and the entertainment industry shutting down, which I was off to having like a really great year in the entertainment industry, and all of a sudden it's like, nah, we won't talk to nobody. We'll hit y'all up a couple months. And it's like, nah, bro, what you mean, bro? Like, nah. Like, so, you know, it was kind of crazy because it's like, here I am, my career is like moving up, but then it's like got pulled back at the same time. But funny enough, like, you know, I was able to just kind of do kind of like what Dev was talking about and just focus on myself. And I'm actually in the best shape of my life right now. I'm literally in the best shape of my life over these past like 2 months. And then I've also had an opportunity to kind of, you know, spend time with my son, man, which, you know, the industry throws you all over the place. And, you know, I'm homeschooling too. So, you know, I'm even a greater influence of being there, to being the one teaching them. So it's actually a great time for me, but it's also kind of controversial. Like, it's like I'm in and out because I'm like, okay, how long, you know, before we get to work again? Because these bills still coming, you know what I'm saying? Baby boy getting bigger, you know what I'm saying? So, but it's like at the same time, I'm still been okay financially. So I'm like, it's like, okay, stay focused on this and then see what happens in the upcoming future. And then along with, you know, just the media, and I can't go on social media without seeing something that's going on with the police. So I know, yeah, like Nicole, I'm not one of those people because like I'm gonna die. Like, you know, personally, like I already know, like just seeing my friends, like I know where not to put myself to set off a trigger. And that's what I had to personally say. And also looking at my son, it's like, yeah, nah, you're not even really old enough to comprehend. I'm your father. I can't throw myself into that situation, you know, at this time. And, you know, I have a whole family at home, you know. So it's kind of controversial because it's like, yo, I'm a big, strong dude. I should be out there, you know, throwing bows with my peeps, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, oh, man, like I got to teach my son to be a man at the same time. So it's very interesting, controversial times at this moment. But I'm definitely for the people, man. I mean, I don't advocate nobody burn nothing down, but if something got burned down, and it got burned down. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. Yeah, like that's just where I am at this moment. So it's very controversial because I'm in a very happy place personally, but then socially and community wise, it's like so much going on that it's kind of like I don't know what to focus on. It's almost like, do I focus here? But it's like you still see it, you still hear it so much, like on the back end, that it's a very emotional roller coaster kind of space that I'm personally in. You know,
that's why I was telling my friend. She called me like really late, and she was like, "How you doing? You good?" And I was like, I don't want to say I'm not, like, I'm good, you know, like we talked about earlier. But then I was like, I don't want to say like I'm down and out, because I'm not depressed right now. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm disappointed. I'm like a little, like I'm down. I'm disappointed. I was really like reaching for the words because I didn't want it to be taken wrong. You know what I mean? But I completely understand you, because like I said, I was asked that and I was like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not that inspired right now. I imagined myself going down there and yelling, and I was like, I feel y'all, but I'm like, I don't see me there right now. And I was like, but I'm using my voice on my platform. I'm not just shutting my door, of course, you know what I mean? But I'm okay with that, and I can voice that, you know what I mean? I do try to avoid the people that just look at me like I should be Malcolm X, you know what I mean? Because I got a blue check mark on the gram. Like I don't feed into that, you know what I'm saying? I try to just be as honest as I can with my truth and like speak on where I stand. Of course, I'm not out here talking about check out my new video I just shot. You know, I think that would just be ignorant on my behalf. But I am battling with my I guess general feelings, because I'm more so just disappointed in the times. And I'm just curious to know, because like we said earlier, it's been going on for all these years. I'm curious of how it's going to iron out and get back to a place where we can, you know, get back on our feet and stuff like that. So I am kind of like a little lost in that area, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That's what I think, though, what Dee was saying about really us coming to a place of guarding our own heart, guard your mind, you know, like you got to put on the helmet of salvation. You know what I mean? Like you got to like it, because what good are we dead? You know, and everybody has their place, you know, and so you got to know who you are and what you have been equipped to do in this world. Some people need to write the poetry, you know, some people need to be the Langston Hughes right now who are going to write the poetry of these times. Some people need to write the book. Some people need to take the pictures, you know what I mean? And there's people who need to cook the meals. There's people who need to raise the next generation. And if we're all out there on the front lines, where are we going to be? That's, you know, part of that is what they do want, you know, they ain't tripping if we out there getting shot up, you know? And so we can't bend our knee to this concept that if we're not running in the same direction as the entire herd, that we're not still a part of the group, you know? It's like when you play capture the flag as a kid, somebody got to guard the flag. We can't all go out there. Somebody got to watch the flag. Like that's how you get got, you know? And so, yeah, I think that's, again, part of our learning process is learning how to understand, what do I need? What do I want? You know, I think that's been one of the biggest things for me in this season, in this quarantine. I feel like I was flourishing hardcore at the beginning. I was like, listen, I'm already an introverted. I'm in here quarantined with Jesus. I'm having praise. Like, I'm leveling up. I'm about to come out of here dripping with oil. Y'all feel me?
Yeah. I gotta mute myself.
Okay. But then, you know, but with that also comes like the unpacking. It's like, okay, some days I'm on the mountaintop with Jesus and some day we in the valley, because I really liken it to the fact of, it's like, I feel like this quarantine is really like, it's like heart surgery, you know, and you gotta be willing to stay on the table long enough for God to really reveal what's in your heart and the things that he wants to take out. You know, it's like there's cancers in us. There's cancers of insecurity. There's cancers of, you know, the lies we tell ourselves. And and being anchored to these things that are actually not healthy for us, and dismantling, beliefs and habits and things that we become accustomed to. And if we don't slow down long enough to get that surgery done, we're going to be back up in here because the cancer going to come back. And so it's uncomfortable. You know, it's like so many of us were athletes. It's like, how much did you hate when you got injured and had to do rehab? And you just wanted to run back out there on the field. But if you go back before you ready, you're going to pull that hamstring again. And so it's like, I feel like that's what we're also learning in this process. And it's okay to be on the roller coaster. You know, that's part of it, because I think it's also equipping us for when we do go back to whatever, I mean, there ain't no normal, but when we leave this place, whatever this place is or wherever we going, you know, we'll actually be better equipped to ride those waves that life is going to throw at us every day if we actually tune in right now and spend this time building those actual mental health habits that we just run past in the regular hurry of life. You know, it's like, it's going to get uncomfortable, like, but that's where the muscle grows. That's where the fat burns. You know what I mean? That's where we level up. And so I feel like part of it is like, I've just been having this game time mentality, like, okay, we're getting ready for the big game. Like, I got to get my mind right. You know what I'm saying? Because when I come out, but you know, you got to know when to rest. You got to know when, you know, you got to build up that muscle. So you got to start lifting heavier weight. And so I think it's beautiful to hear us sharing that it has not been all sunshine and roses, and that, you know, you have peaks and valleys, because that is, you know, to Nate's point, like it changes incremental, like societal and within ourselves. You're not going to lose 10 pounds in a week. You know, you're not going to eradicate racism in your family by the end of quarantine. Like, that's just not going to happen. And so we have to curtail our expectations. You know, like, one of the best things, my auntie, she's a therapist, and she told me one time, because I had, you know, issues with my mom, and she's like, well, really the issue is your expectations. Like, you're expecting her to be somebody that she's not. Like, you're expecting her to show up for you in a way that she literally cannot show up. Like, you have this expectation of who a mother is supposed to be and who you want your mother to be, but that's not actually who she is capable of being. And so she cannot live up to your expectations, which means you need to adjust your expectations. And I'm just like, me? It's me? Like, you know, I had to put pause on that. And so that really reframed my whole situation, even around this quarantine. Like, I have to adjust my expectations about what this looks like and how I'm supposed to operate in it, and what society, like, what all this is. Like, we have to constantly be okay with recalibrating. And that's the beautiful thing, because we're getting stronger mentally and emotionally, you know, in all of this. So I applaud everybody on here for being vulnerable. My favorite thing.
And that's really the beauty of life too. Like, you live and you learn, and you just keep growing and growing and growing. Like, each day is a new day. You learn something new every day. It's never going to be perfect.
Right.
Does anyone, any of the guests or like attendees have any questions?
Oh, the chat. Here we go.
I just want to make a note that a couple of people in the chat, I've been reading over there and doing my little trolling. They started a group for people who don't want to talk publicly about their problems on Instagram, so they can vent to each other, because they're actually getting to know each other in the chat room.
That's awesome.
Okay,
That's the alarm.
dope.
I just want to shout that out. That's dope, man. That's dope. Look at them. They're making their little panel amongst panel, thanks to our panel. Hey.
Look, not to put too much pressure on you, Brianka and John, but maybe this can be a series that you all start.
Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Pressure applied. Bump that.
Pressure applied.
I think it's really important, you know, because, like, you know, I specialize in trauma. Everything I do is about trauma, and we are in traumatic times, and understanding that everybody reacts to trauma differently, but there are pretty much a set of things that, you know, not sleeping, irritability, you know, all these various things. And that goes back to the awareness that these things are happening. And so you don't hear people like, oh, that was traumatic. Like, that's not something that we say. Or, you know, a lot of times, even
Damn, you're right.
we're doing assessments, it's like, so have you ever had any trauma? It's like, what's that? But I realized I've been traumatized all my life, since I was young. Went to the military, got traumatized again when I realized that the United States didn't care about us. And so there was all these various things and how I reacted, how I grew from it. And I think that in this time, we have to continuously talk about these things. We have to heal from these traumatic times. When I talked about the scar on my head from the LAPD and not being able to march, it was because I still can't control my anger when it comes to ignorant cops. Like, I totally black out and go crazy. And I still have not been able to, it's not even something that in my own therapy that I've been able to really deal with. So even though I work with police, so these are things that I think, we got to be aware of. There's people out there who have not worked. I've worked the entire time during the quarantine. So that's a whole nother trauma. So there's all these various things that are going on. And I think the more we talk about these things, the more people will come and be able to come out, even though they started their private group. Maybe one day they'll be able to share with us. So I think that's cool.
I want to piggyback off of that. I think, with us facing this time, it's been a moment, especially for me personally, that I had to have conversations with people like, how are you feeling? And don't tell me you're good because I know you're not, and really being able to be honest. And I think even the beauty in it was, even with me and my cousins, we have a group chat. But this was the first time that we've actually dug into our feelings and said, yo, it's been tough. It's been a struggle. And even with losing my cousin, her anniversary being this month, this was the first time we all were on a video call and we actually expressed how we felt about it 7 years later, because we were able to actually be vulnerable with each other and be like, yo, this quarantine has been troublesome. I've been crying, I've been this, I've been that, and we've all been able to get to that point and be vulnerable with each other. No, we're all going through it. Let's get through it together. I think that's the biggest beauty of it. And for everyone around there who's listening to also understand that, like, it's okay to be vulnerable. And when you find that circle of people, just know that you guys can express that. And then if they don't accept it, find another circle, but be able to find that community that can actually help you get through what you're going through. And that's not afraid to share what they're going through as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that you do have a support group, even if it's 2 to 3 people. And if you do have friends that don't want to listen to you, those aren't your friends, sadly. And you need to find a new circle, a new group of people to be able to converse and be open with. If you have people around you that aren't willing to listen to you, you need to find some friends, find some new friends. Those aren't the people you need to be around. Because I know, it's funny, like I thought about the other day, the first time I felt comfortable, like telling like another friend of mine, like a brother, that I love you. Like, I love you. I think for most men, it may be kind of awkward at first, depending on where you at in your vulnerability. But at the same time, it took me a little minute to realize that I'm okay saying I'm okay. I'm like, I can tell another brother I love him. Like Terrence, Steven, Devan, like Nate, I love y'all. Like, I got mad love for y'all, bro. And I mean that. And I know they will be there to listen. And if there was anything kind of going on with me, but it is important that you find that circle, a group of people that will listen to you, and then you guys converse with. And even if it's 2 to 3 people, you have somebody to fall back on whenever anything is happening.
And remain confident in that too. I know I take a lot of pride in, like I said, like I was an emotional kid. I always expressed myself, and I saw my friends really couldn't. So when I would express myself, or I would try to like open up, I would get that response from men like, "Yo, bro, why you trying to be soft? Like, ain't nobody trying to have these deep ass talks right now, bro." Like, da-da-da-da. And like I would hear it, and I would see most people kind of like giggling and stuff, but you catch a friend or two that's like, damn, I wish I could do it. And I had the balls to be like, nah, fool, I'm sad. And if y'all my friends, y'all gonna hear me out. If y'all don't wanna hear me out, I'll go talk to a tree or some shit. Like, I don't care. Y'all not gonna make me feel like shut up. That's what you're not gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Change your narrative. Instead of saying you were an emotional kid, just say you were an expressive kid. See, that's the part we got to do, is change our narrative to emotional, because everybody's emotional.
That's what I said. That's what I always thought. Yeah, I would use it like that. Yeah, expressive. Yeah. I would express that. Even when I was saying, I'd be like, yo, you're right. You're absolutely right. I learned that. I'm gonna start saying that now. but I used to look at
that's important to talk because when we talk to people, I'm expressive. I'm not emotional. I'm expressive.
But here's the thing. So I would feel like I would say emotional but I would try to preach that that's not bad. Like when y'all see me tell a joke and y'all see me laughing and ha and y'all want to embrace that when I'm crying. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the same thing. I value it just as much. Like I need to let it out. That's how I feel inside. And if I'm laughing, you want to laugh too. And you might not have to cry along with me, but at least try to feel what I'm going through at the time. That's all. So I'm glad that you used that because I did learn a lot. But I spent a lot of my life trying to show people that being emotional isn't bad. You know what I mean? And now I learned from here, like being expressive isn't bad. You know what I mean? There is a time and place and a way. Of course, you learn all that too along with it. Right. But I did notice that a lot of my friends didn't have that bug in them and they tried to push that light on me. And I'm like, nah, fool, what y'all want me to bottle us up? Y'all know what's going on in my house? My daddy beating the hell out of my mama. Like, I ain't got time to go in there with my own bullying problems in school and stuff. Nah, y'all gonna hear this because I got to go home and deal with other stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you worded that. I'm mad hype. I just learned that because like they apply it to my zodiac sign too. They like, what's your sign? I'm a Cancer. Oh, you emotional. I'm like, so what? So what? Like, I'm glad you said it. You right. So if I'm mad, you gonna know. You know what I'm saying? If I'm sad, you gonna know just as much as I'm happy. You know what I mean? But so now I can't wait for the rest of my life. I'm gonna be like, dude, you emotional. If I'm expressive, fool, you better kiss my ass.
Right. I'm expressive.
You know, I'm expressive. You better watch your mouth. You know, my bad, y'all. I get excited. But nah, thank you though.
I think it's important too that, we have these loved ones and we have these friends around us, and sometimes they just aren't educated or aware. So we just got to teach them, you know what I mean? And then hopefully they will learn, and then they will be supportive, and then they'll be there.
They do. It affects them.
Yep. Yeah. Nah.
Expressive.
Like that quote I love so much. That is, as we allow our own light to shine, we encourage others to do the same. And I think that's really, the crux of everything we've really shared. It's like, you don't always have to have the answer, but like Nicole was saying, like when you learn to actually be honest with yourself and walk in that honesty, it's contagious. The same way fear is contagious, confidence is also contagious. And so when we walk boldly in truth and unapologetically, we by default enable others to do the same. They say, you know what? They talked about their eating disorder. I can talk about mine too. And so you don't even have to preach with words. It's like, I just let my life speak. And if somebody wants to have the conversation, like I'm always open for it. But, I have found, even when it comes to God or whatever, I really don't preach to people, but people come because of the way that I speak to myself, the way that I speak through myself. And so it's like they are drawn in by that conversation you have with yourself, by the way you carry yourself, by the way you reflect your thoughts into the world. And so I think too, that for me is one of the biggest ways that we make change is just by allowing ourselves to be changed. And others will see that transformation, and that will speak louder than anything we really ever say, because they'll see that and they'll be like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what you did, but I want that, But with that, y'all, I love you so much. I got to dip out though. I got to go to my prayer group.
Get your prayer on, girl.
Yeah, I told you. I heard what she said about a God shall play. She better be dripping in oil. Thank you. Hey, Natasha, your metaphors are A1. Your metaphors are real good. I learned off of it. I use them a lot in my speaking, and they stood out to me a lot. I was like, oh, damn. The pack one, I'm still in that. That's in the pocket. That's going to pop. I'm telling everybody that, John.
Natasha, remember one thing, though, because I listened to you. And, when you have that much confidence in who you are and your belief system, just walk in it no matter what. Because what I've learned in helping others is that I don't do what I do for them. I do what I do for God. So they may not accept where I'm coming from at that moment, but I guarantee you those seeds are sown. And that's all you can do is keep walking in your light, hon. I like your light. Keep it moving.
That's a word. That's a word. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Natasha, I appreciate you, man. I'm glad that, B introduced us. I'm glad that you were a part of this. Man, you've inspired me just from the conversation and everything you shared. So thank you, really. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can all meet three-dimensionally sometime soon and do this in person,
Yeah.
Filming in Atlanta.
LA people, I'm out there a lot, so.
Does anyone else have like anything else they'd like to share, before we wrap up?
I just want to say, man, you don't go through it, you grow through it. So, if y'all dealing with anything, man, me personally, you can always reach out to me. Terrence, I know you in LA. Dev, I know we talk every once in a while. But and John, we chop it up every once in a while. But me personally, man, I love to communicate, man. I think that's one of the number one things we don't do as humans, especially now in this technology phase. I walk past a lot of people and people just don't even say hello. And I think I think we forget the fact that we are energy. Mm-hmm. And just saying hello, speaking to someone, asking somebody how they're doing, checking in with people, that energy is huge, and it can be transferred because negative thoughts. Hold on, let me say this. Positive thoughts work 50% of the time. Negative thoughts work 100% of the time. So you got to work hard on those positive thoughts, and just stay positive. That's all I got, man. But yeah, if anybody want to connect, man, I'm definitely down. If anybody's doing anything else in mental health, I'm with it. I'm definitely down.
Yo, Steve, let's work out this week.
Oh, definitely, I'm down, bro. I'm down. Let's chop it up.
And thanks, Steven. Same here. I call my company A New Perspective for a reason. And, I like to give people a different perspective on how to look at things that would help them, with their mental health and operate in a healthier way, because perspective is everything. So,
hey, Nathan and Nicole, how many of these do we get before we get an invoice? I was like, bro, you inspiring me, but I know y'all got plaques on y'all wall.
That consultation fee.
Yeah. Once you slide in the DMs, you now a client.
Yeah, now when me and B talked about doing this, I knew exactly who I was going to reach out to. So I'm like, Nicole, definitely Nate. Nate and I worked on a few panels together, and I know we needed like that male perspective, especially him being a licensed therapist. And then even Nicole and I have worked on some things together, and we plan on working on some more things in the future. So I knew she could bring it, and I knew it would all help this panel and educating the people, man, spreading awareness. So I appreciate y'all, each and every one of y'all. I love y'all.
Yeah, I love you too, bro.
Love you too.
Yo, y'all got somebody from Namibia on this joint. They just said they're from Namibia tuned in, so we got.
Hey.
Oh, word, yeah.
Oh, that's what's
Oh,
up.
let's go. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I want to say too, it was some people that asked some questions in the Q&A, but they asked some very vague questions that needed a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I don't mind you if you I think I put my IG up there. If you want to talk about that a little bit more, I don't mind. But it's just that the question that you asked needed a little bit more before.
I agree. Yeah, I saw
Natasha,
it too.
you know you
I said the
good,
same
right?
thing.
I feel like we dragging her along. Like she said bye like 10 minutes ago. I don't want her to feel like, I feel like I forgot. She's like, y'all, I told y'all God is calling me, and y'all keep. I tried to say bye 10 minutes ago. I don't want to just hit the X.
Yeah, pray for us, please.
Prayer requests. You can always DM me your prayer requests. I love praying for people. So, anyways, all right, love y'all, fam. We'll talk later.
Yes. All right.
And thank you, same here. Great meeting you all. John, we got this. Nicole, you here in the area, so I look forward to connecting with you. There you go.
Don't end the Zoom. Whose Zoom is this? Who's running the Zoom? I don't end it right away. Don't end there. I'm over here like, don't leave me, mama. y'all trying to break the group up. No, just saying. Nah, I want to just talk to a few of the people in the chat still a little bit, just in case.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
All right, I'll let y'all have the floor again. Okay.
But thank you, John. I appreciate it. This is my favorite topic. So, and I love helping and all those things. And I think this is very important. I love to see Black men express themselves like Terrence. And it's always refreshing to see it. I think anybody who has not seen John's Man in the House that's on the chat, that you guys definitely need to check that out. It was very well done. Therapeutically sound. And I'm always telling people about it and just your growth throughout all of this. And I do look forward to, I have some things for us to do. And so there's more work to be done, and I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm so grateful for Man of the House, man, because it connected me with all you guys. I think each of us has like a unique relationship I'm just grateful, really. My door or my phone or whatever you guys need, I'm always available. I know with each of you, we've had like real serious conversations that still mean a lot to me. That'll never change. And it's all love on this side. Like, I'm grateful for y'all. I'm glad that y'all could be a part of this. I'm definitely down to do more of it. This was Mental Health Awareness Month, and I usually like to do something for Mental Health Awareness Month and even Suicide Prevention Month in September. But being with the quarantine going on, couldn't do anything outdoors, so I found, a way to improvise and do it this way. So I'm glad it happened. So let's definitely stay in touch and do this.
You guys really made the vibe in here really felt like it was okay to say things that don't feel okay, if that makes sense. Like hearing everybody talk, it triggered a lot of personal feelings for me, a lot of moments that I only talk to with certain people. And at the same time, I know, we know everybody, we all have a name and stuff, but like at the first few hours, y'all were all strangers. Most of you guys were strangers to me. So at first I was like, I'm about to just tell my story. It was always, I'm gonna tell them who I am, what I've been through, about my stuff. And then, hearing you guys talk, it was like, okay, let me take this me shield off. And I'm learning about them, and hearing their story is triggering stuff that honestly I didn't even address. I talk a lot about suicide and stuff with my brother, but I spent a lot of time talking about my childhood. I spent a lot of time talking about who I am. I spent a lot of time talking about personal things, like things honestly I didn't even expect to cross my mind or even talk about ever in my life. So the vibe in here and just the ability that everyone's so gifted to be able to bring such a dark spot for me out, I know it's going to do it for a lot of other people too, the more we do it and stuff like that. So you guys are powerful human beings, and I appreciate it so much. I just want to say thank you guys for that. And then
and that's dope, man, because I mean, it basically just creates a safe space so you can start pulling off those layers, because you come in thinking one thing and next thing you know, it's like, oh shit, that was wrong, something going on with there too. So it's like, it's just constant growth. It's literally, awareness, having that awareness to say, because if you don't know something's wrong, then you don't know to change nothing. Right. So you got to be aware in order to make a change. And again, like, that's why awareness is so important, because if you don't know, then you just going to be going through the motions, going through the cycle. I battled with alcohol for a long time, and I didn't even know why I was drinking. I was just getting wasted, and again, I was depressed, didn't even know it. I'm thinking I'm partying, having a good time, but really I'm just out to get wasted as often as possible, just to try to numb my own pain and infuse it, and then even make excuses on why I'm doing what I'm doing. You build these barriers and these ways of validating why you're doing what you're doing, instead of just facing it directly up front. And that's what I found to be the best tool for me, is like when certain things happen, I start feeling buzzing, face it directly. Like, Faye, don't procrastinate, don't put it off, face it directly, deal with it up front. Because a lot of times I say to myself, wait, what was the worst thing that you thought would never end? and you got past it. You survived. You can handle this. You know what I mean? And that's just a constant growth of learning throughout life, man, and really taking into account what you're doing and holding yourself accountable for your own actions.
Definitely.
Yeah, so thanks for this safe space, bro.
Of course, man. I just thought it was important to create like just an environment, a safe environment that had like a support group kind of vibe. And I mean, when we was putting, the panel together, I knew that you guys were perfect, man. You guys all had a story to tell. You guys were all at a point where you were comfortable sharing and speaking about that story. And I knew it would help people, and it would, inspire people. And I'm really grateful that this all happened, man. And yeah, we can continue to do this. Like I was like 2019, I was doing like the support group Sunday, where like the last Sunday of each month, I would have like a support group session. And during the time I was going through a lot personally. So it was really helping me. But the people that came, it was helping them as well. And we did it for a few months, but then I didn't have a location, and it just never happened. But this was something I was always passionate about doing, just having this support group type of feel amongst people that I appreciate, that I know will listen and understand what's going on. So if you guys want to do this, you could message me or call me, DM me, call, whatever. And we can make this happen. We could start with once a month or once every quarter, whatever y'all want to do. I'm definitely down. Yeah.
Make it do what it do.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Let me know. I'm there, bro.
Definitely. I appreciate y'all, man. Are we done? Does anyone else have anything else to say, B?
Y'all want to sing a song or something? I'm just playing.
Y'all real quick.
Can we hold outside of our screens and hug each other?
Yeah, that was the other part that was hard about quarantining. I'm a hugger. I like hugging.
You seem like you give good hugs too, Nicole.
Hey. Yo, classic. Hey, thank you for your time, man. And anyone in the chat, I'm about to type it in there, but it was in there. I'm gonna put my @ name in there. Y'all check me out and all that good stuff. And again,
I'm
John B.
Y'all can follow. I'll respond. Whatever. I'm with
y'all killed it, man. I'm hype. I feel like I just went to church. Like I'm like,
oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So appreciate you guys, and yeah, catch y'all on the next one. Put me on that flyer. I'm on the panel. I'm an original. I'm an OG. You heard? I'm an original OG.
Definitely.
Founding father. You heard? No, it's playing. Yeah, crazy. I talk to y'all later, man. Thank you.
All right, later, y'all.
Yeah.
Peace.
B, I'm gonna call you. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Or yeah, I'll call you. We can end this now.